Hello, Uganda. Good evening and welcome to the show On the Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara. Now, this week has been stunned by the news of notable opposition figures switching allegiance to the NRM party, an act interpreted differently depending on whom you talk to. But most of all, the future of opposition in Uganda is left in contention. Adding more concerned is the letter by President Museveni reaffirming the fight against the existence of the opposition in Uganda by 2031, just after 20 years of multi-party dispensation, questioning whether this was brought in good faith in the first place. Notwithstanding the Museveni speech on Janan Luwumu Day, where he blamed Amini of imposing himself on citizens, which also unearthed many subjects of discussion. Tonight, we'll be looking into the culture of opposition in Uganda's democracy. Now, let me introduce my guest this evening. I have the National Vice Chairperson of the Forum for Democratic Change, the Honorable Robert Centenary. Thank you so much for joining us, Robert. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Patrick, and good evening, viewers. It's a pleasure to be here once again.
I have the Director, External Affairs at the National Resistance Movement Secretariat, Paula Awich. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you.
The last time, I know you retired in the army, but at a rank I've just forgotten, Colonel or Major?
Major.
Retired Major Paula Awich. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Thank you, and good evening to the viewers.
Let me begin with you, Robert, because your party, the Forum for Democratic Change, that was so formidable about 20 years back, or even just a few years back, has suffered an implosion of sorts, especially when you look at the party that went out, members who went out and created the PFF. But just yesterday, we saw a senior member, a vice president in charge of Buganda region, a very respectable counsel, a legal mind, crossing the aisle. Many have left. What is it that they are running from?
Thank you. It's a good question. What is it they are running from? I can rephrase it as, what is it that they are running to? Because in the first place, when the FDC was being formed, it had so many people. Others have since left, others have died, and others have remained. I can tell you that the Forum for Democratic Change is the only party in this country that has stood the test of time, having gone through a series of turbulent times, but it still remains firm on ground. I've always said it that we, the leaders, may have our own challenges, our own confusions, but the members on the grassroots, they remain firm because this is their party. They founded it, they belong to and with it. It is part of their DNA. So anybody can leave, but the party will remain. It's a party that has been built on a value system. It has processes, it has structures, and I can dare any other political party, if they can even go through a quarter of what we have gone through as a party and still continue to exist the way we have.
When we posted online that we are going to have this show that included you and Major Paula Awich, I had a friend in the Rwenzori who was sending me a message because that many of the top cadres of FDC have gone. And somebody, I don't know whether it was a joke or real, that even you, Robert Centenary, you're contemplating to leave.
Actually, I think I've been conscripted. You remember there was that meeting which Nsibambi led a delegation to go to State House, And on one of the media houses, they did mention my name as somebody who had participated in that meeting. Of course, there was a clarification story that I personally made on that media house. And the next day, there is a minister, I think the Minister for Presidency, who had a pullout in New Vision, also mentioning my name as somebody who was part of that meeting. I had taken offense in the media, those particular media houses, involving me in a meeting that I had no information about. I was never invited. I didn't know that even it was taking place. And I was only made aware that it took place by a journalist from CBS who called me asking me whether we the FDC, were the ones who sent Nsibambi to that meeting that took place at State House. But eventually, I picked the positive out of that media publicity. First of all, I must state that it's not an offense, it's not criminal to meet the president, but it depends on how you meet him. So I realized that, yeah, if these people can even dream or think that it is important for me to be part of that meeting with the president, who is a fountain of honor, then I must really applaud myself for being at that level.
So you applaud.
I can catch.
Let me start from there.
Let me start from
there. Applaud yourself for being at that level. I can imagine senior cadres in FDC, when you look at the people who have moved, and I'm going to give you some names. People like Joyce Sebugwao is now minister of state. People like Beatrice Anwar is now minister. People like Betty Kamya, Inspector General of Government. People like Anita Mong is now speaker. People like Thomas is now deputy speaker. So, in other words, those who are remaining also want to applaud themselves, using your language, to be able to reach there. So are they not thinking that I want to be like them because they are in a better position, I suppose?
It's not a guarantee that whoever is going to cross the NRM will automatically get to the high table.
But do you realize that people have crossed and they're eating big and now they are running the show? They are taking decisions for Uganda.
There are those who joined and ate big, like Honorable Chivanzanga, and they were dropped along the way. But one important thing I want to speak about the FDC is that it's an academy for leaders. When you see the people who are now running the show in NRM, the Speaker of Parliament, Anita Mong, is now on top of the game. That one is our student at the FDC in the Leadership Academy. So we proud ourselves in brewing and breeding leaders for this country. It's unfortunate that they leave after we have already nurtured them. But it's also equally important for us to appreciate that in this country, we serve at two different fronts. Those who are in government are serving the country. Those of us who are in the opposition are also serving the country in a capacity of advising the government so that it doesn't lose track. So for me, if they have seen potential in leaders that FDC has nurtured, I think it should be a credit to ourselves.
Let me go to Major Paula Awich. I know you could be happy because people are coming to your bandwagon, are disembarking FDC and other parties and joining and entering the bus. But really, if we're going to have serious multi-party dispensation in Uganda, you need you know, some form of opposition. You don't go for total annihilation, total destruction. The president is at many times saying, I will finish them all, and I will crush them all. They will not be there. And I mean, how is that building democracy? Total annihilation.
Well, thank you so much, Kamara. The topic we have at hand is a culture of opposition in Uganda. I will answer squarely your question, but I just like to throw in a short while the history so that those who are watching it can appreciate the situation. In that opposition is a situation where you have a governance system, where you have a party in power, a party in ruling power, and then others not. And it transcends from having the opposition right in the grassroots up to parliament. It is manifested in parliament where one side sit government and one side sit the opposition. Now, maybe viewers may think, when did all this start? It is true that when we went for independence, the first government that came was opposition government. But it's also true that we have had the countries, Uganda, without governments, without either opposition or proposition in that case. We had the first non-opposition-like government was the UNLF government, which had a parliament under Professor Rugmayo. That was called the National Consultative Council. It was a parliament for all under the umbrella when the Amin was overthrown. You also had a time of governance like under NRM where there was National Resistance Council making law. It didn't have opposition, and even among the population there was no opposition. So that is how Uganda has been, and now we are here. But I also like to say that while we talk of crossing as it is now, in the other past history, the history of crossing was that you could win, for example, election from Akohoro under UPC, Obote's place. And when you come to Kampala, you say, I've crossed. They used to call it crossing the floor. Literally, the floor is this one. Because the opposition is that way, then they would cross the floor. You could also see win, say, for example, in Kirihora in Nyabushozi, under NRM. And when you come to Kampala, you cross the floor. So part of the effect of that is being felt up to now. Because by the time Amin took over power, nearly all DP had crossed the floor. They had crossed the floor. Now, what did NRM philosophy entail? With the thinking of NRM, it was envisaged that crossing that we are talking must not be a trick. If you win on UPC from Akohoro and you come to Kampala and you want to cross, the Constitution says first lose your seat. First lose your seat. If you went to Nyabushozi and you won on NRM and you want to come and cross, the Constitution says first lose your seat. Therefore, we are talking of crossing, because you're saying NRM wants to take all. We are talking of crossing, even those who are not in parliament. We are talking of crossing where the constitutional provision is so clear that please don't cross under tricks. Don't cross with tricks. Cross consensually from your heart and cross with decency. Don't trick people in Nyabushozi that you are NRM, you come to Kampala to cross. So I thought it is good to bring that background so that we understand the concept of crossing. Now, to your specific question as to we want all. Of course, a political party worth its name would want, first of all, to take over state power through democratic means. And the only way you take over power through democratic means is by building number. So a conscious political party, particularly a mass party like NRM, would want to win everybody. I like to differentiate here a mass party and other party. A mass party is, in NRM, is a party which accepts minimum requirement. You are Ugandan, you have sound mind, it's okay. But other parties like the Communist Party, say for example of China, or even in CCN, it's not a mass party, not everybody is a member. China has 1.5 billion people, only 900 are members of the Communist Party. 1.41 billion are not members. So a political party like NRM, and especially being a mass party which accepts minimum, it is in our wish that we would convince as many as possible. And as I said, consensually, with the constitutional provisions which clearly states, should you be elected, please, this is what to do. And so that's what we are doing. So we are not terrorizing. We just want...
The chairman of the party and the president of Uganda is on record many times saying that I will smash them. There will be no opposition in Uganda. And, well, of course you want to win, but when the head of state is promising to completely wipe off the opposition, is that building democracy?
Yes, it is. You see, you took the statement from that point of view. But when the president says we shall destroy, we shall not have opposition, what he meant is what preceding activities or actions do you do to do that? In other words, he's saying we are going to use our manifesto to meet the needs of the people. And once the needs of the people are met, then they will abandon. He's not saying we're going to use gun to bring them. No. He's saying we shall do our best to meet the needs, and we nearly did it. You can see here recently by 71%.
Have you met the needs of the people, or you have met the needs of the individual politicians who are crossing the aisle? Because it is possible that instead of following a political ideology, they are following the grocery ideology.
You see,
you're giving them food.
Maybe you are looking
You're giving them what to eat.
You are looking at the political leaders who are crossing. But in our constitution, the basic unit, the cell in NRM, is what is called a branch at a village level. Now, if we were to document and publish those who are crossing at village level, that is why recently we were talking of a register of 14 million people. So it is only because Sibambi is a member of parliament, because Sibambi was a lecturer at the university. Otherwise, Kamara, at the branch level, people are crossing. The number is swelling. So don't only look at the political leaders and think that is the only crossing. The mass recruitment is going on. And we do it in our cell, in our unit. Our smallest cell is the parish. Is the village. And we have 72,000 of them. 72,000 branches.
Okay,
and we are doing it.
Honorable Robert Centenary, really, let's look into the nature of the opposition of politics in Uganda. When you are on the other side of the aisle, are you grounded in some kind of ideology and principles and say, this is FDC, these are our values, this is what we stand for? Because I can imagine if that is what you have, it's hard for you to cross into NRM or NUP, because that's a different entity altogether. Your principles, your ideologies are different.
I think we need to first of all appreciate and understand the evolution of opposition politics in this country. Even Museveni himself was part of the opposition. He decided to go to the bushes in Luweero, and he came to power by the power of the gun. He formed a government. At that time, he had the 10-point program. I want to believe that is the value system that he stood for, and the team that he had. Over the years, he introduced elective politics. And I can really say that the first elections that were held were at least okay. But now, we are looking at a situation where even becoming a presidential candidate or a candidate in the opposition is being criminalized. We have a number of candidates. Some are either in exile, like Bobby Wine, he has fled. Others are incarcerated, the Chivumbis and the likes. And immediately, even after the election, or even during the process of election, we are seeing the system, the Electoral Commission, which is supposed to be a regulatory body, the judicial system, which is supposed to be the moderator, you know, getting involved in a broad day electoral fraud, where a returning officer is just going to overturn somebody's victory on the table. And when they run to court, which is supposed to be the other arm of government, the same matter, as you know, the law says once the seals have been tampered with, there shouldn't be a recount. In one court, a magistrate will rule that the recount should not take place. In another one, the magistrate will rule that the recount should take place, despite the fact that the seals are...
You are a candidate in the just concluded election.
Broken.
Yes, in Kasese. So do you have evidence that at the polling station X, let's say Cholikwater in Kasese, I got to the 200 votes, and yet when they're announcing on this polling station, they gave me 5. Is that the case?
Now, what I witnessed at the polling station...
Are you saying on the polling station, Robert, where you competed, the numbers that you got were changed? And
what I saw...
And you have evidence for that?
Was open. Actually, it was a market. Money changing hands, exchanging hands on the lines. Openly, I'd never seen this before.
Whereas money, it shouldn't be used in that sense. Each one of you as a candidate, you deploy the money.
Open bribery.
If you're outspent.
They put money in a candidate's flyer, say, go and give us a vote. What I witnessed in the Tare Center.
Let me ask this, Robert. In your own campaigns, you never used the money?
The money I used was to buy fuel for my machines.
You came short on if you had more.
Public address system.
But if you had more, you would have deployed it.
No, the law does not allow. And we who are in the opposition are very cautious and careful about, because you see, you will win an election and you will be taken to court for bribing the voters, and you will lose that election.
So you're cautious. You're cautious to spend money, or you just don't have it.
Cautious to spend it, but even if I had it, I don't think I had more than what the state deployed. Actually, the practice right now is that it is the highest bidder takes it all. But even those who survived the manipulation in the field, I'll give you an example. Honorable Mbaju, when we go to the polling station, to the tally center, him and the other candidates they were in the race with, they had the declaration forms that were showing he was leading by 601 votes. And that was the example I was trying to give. But the returning officer declared an NRM flag bearer to have won by 85 votes. So his victory, I saw it being overturned in the presence of the district police commanders and the police. Let me ask, has the ground in Kasese this time around, has it been more uneven than before? Hasn't that been the case for all the time? This time, in the previous election, I said,
because you have always,
they were a little bit okay.
I've heard you say, and some of your colleagues, that the ground is not leveled for political multi-party dispensation.
Very true.
But even in that case, FDC was winning high in Rwenzori. You have just, under similar circumstances.
Let me tell you.
So what happened this time around?
What happened this time around is that a very well-crafted scheme that involves the office of the RDC, office of the DISO, the police, the security apparatus, including the military, was crafted to hedge the opposition out of Kasese and other places. One, money was involved. Two, the security had a very high participation to the effect that, you know, the BVK machines didn't function. So if you had 1,000, like for the case of Kasese municipality, 1,200 soldiers voting 3 times, that was already 3,600 votes in favor of the NRM flag bearers.
Major Paula, you know, when you hear the Honorable Robert Centenary, a leader at that level, former member of parliament, vice president of the party, he's participated in just concluded election. He's giving what he has been able to see in the field, you know, bravery, intimidation, you know, people who, public officials getting involved in partisan politics. That is not something that builds democracy, is it?
If what he was saying was true,
it is true.
It would not build democracy. But have you realized that when Honorable talked, you yourself, Kamara, insisted and asked him, are you sure there's a polling station X which got this vote and was changed? Did you see him changing and saying, no, you see, I mean the other, you see? So here it calls for really responsible talk from leaders. The responsible talk here is talk with evidence and don't talk for sensation. If it is a matter that is saying or for a declaration form, even here we are hearing only his version. I am sure if you call the other party, will tell you something else. Or even if you ask Election Commission. So we cannot take his talk now with any evidential value. Therefore, I still call upon our leaders like him to talk responsibly with evidence and facts. So whatever is alleging now would not be.
But I wonder how you bring that, Major Paula, because the chairman of your party and the president of this country is on record having said several times that in the last election he was cheated 2.7 million votes, which means the element of cheating is there. It is known by the president. He has expressed it. If they can cheat the president, like he said, how about Robert Centenary?
That is what I said. I said responsible talk. I said responsible talk. So I have ever
first of all, do you believe that 2.7 million votes of the president were stolen from him in 2021 election?
Still, it goes down to what I've said as responsible talk. The Museveni
so is that
I know,
is that irresponsible talk?
The Museveni that I know, Kamara, whatever he talks, he will think about it and again and again, and he will talk it. And even if you ask him tomorrow, he'll say the same thing. Let me put it this way.
But I'm not answering your question. Major Paula,
I'm not answering your question.
Major Paula, does it make sense that 2.7 million votes are lost and the president, who is actually the appointing authority of the Electoral Commission, Commissioner Chairman, he leaves the same people to run another election, having overseen the loss of 2.7 million votes? There should have been prosecution. Somebody should have answered for that, or even gone to jail. Do
you want me to answer? Because 3, 4 more you have asked, I tried to answer, you close me. So if you want an answer, please wait for the answer. I am saying that the president is the consumer of all intelligence. And the personality of Museveni that I know will speak a statement today, tomorrow, and the rest, and it will remain the same. Now, the case of Kasese actually demonstrates why we have won all of it. We have had interventions, like in Kasese. There's several interventions that we did in Kasese, including production activities that General Saleh was involved. General Saleh was involved because we realized that Kasese could be a problem of poverty elevation. And a lot of intervention was done in Kasese. The same way we try to do in urban areas. For example, what do you do to a PDM to a person who is working in a Nakasero market and yet he stays in Kalerwe or somewhere? So all these interventions, what you're seeing in Kasese, because your question was why the change in Kasese. The change in Kasese is deliberate, by deliberate interventions designed to to remove people from poverty, including General Saleh's intervention. Now, so that's why you see a result. It is a long-time investment to change the status quo. We tried even to do it where the ghettos. We said, now, why are the ghetto youth quarreling? Then you identify the problem and make interventions. Now, about why the president did not act as you say on the question of electoral commission. Kamal, not everything needs to be punitive. If we were to punish everybody all the time, we wouldn't. The president had this engagement. He talked with the Electoral Commission at length, and the Electoral Commission gave their version. But if it is upon him to choose to renew because he's the appointing authority or not. But if you feel that because this occurrence had happened and it therefore warranted a penalty, then it is up to him. But the President Museveni, again, that I know, is not that punitive. He's a person who will discuss with you and agree a way forward. In any case, the Electoral Commission will also give their version. Either it was their inability, or it was an oversight, or they didn't know. So I don't see a big thing like lack of punishing them.
So you are suggesting that in this multi-party democracy that we have, if an entity that is overseeing the election, loses, 2.7 million votes are stolen under their watch. By the way, that could even could be a national security issue, and then nothing is done. For prosecution, and somebody should go to court. Somebody should explain, and if anybody deliberately did that, then they should answer for that. If you leave it that way, then are we building a multi-party democracy that can be believed?
You see, I still remain on my point on the discretional power on the president to punish or not. Remember, Kamara, even those who are already convicted and sentenced to death, the president still exercises priority and forgives them. Therefore, if every penalty action or omissions, for example, now you have had this machine.
That's when they've gone through a judicial process.
Yes, true. So the discretion is easy.
Major Paula,
the discretion is easy. So I'm just illustrating an extreme example that occurs. So if that occurs, how about this? For example, we have had issues with machines, the voting machines. Do you want such a sensational president who watches an omissions or commissions and quickly picks a phone and said, I've dismissed you? Many times, President Museveni goes under intense pressure and he gives times to observe and give patience. It is not only on the stealing of the votes. Many things. Okay. Many things. But he watches over time, and when he sees that there's a provision of a cure ahead, he doesn't rush for punitive. But if President, including intelligence report, by the way, even on government officials, if Museveni was to be punitive, that this minister has done this, that PS has done this, everybody would be punished.
But number 7 of your 10-point program is talking about zero tolerance to corruption. Those are the values of it.
Does that mean immediate penalty?
I mean, but what is it? So you gloss over it?
No.
Let me come to you.
You want me to explain that? Zero tolerance, Kamara, it may not mean the punishment is the ultimate aim. For example, if you say we're going to do zero tolerance to corruption, and you say one thing we're going to do is to remove human-to-human contact, like say in a passport acquisition, we are going to install machine, you apply online, pay online, go and pick your passport. That is an aspect of zero tolerance. It's not to say we are going to beat everybody on the street. No, but you have done that. It is a preventive, a preemptive approach. That is zero tolerance.
Well, you have just said that he's sometimes takes his time not to punish.
Yes.
But if a crime is committed, a crime as colossal as that one, we expect the wagon of honor, the fountain of honor, to be able to move, because that's why the people of Uganda have given him that mandate. But let me, Robert, sometimes we can maybe fault them really unfairly, because if your colleagues in FDC, top leaders at the level of vice president, have gone, and we hear of the talk that they have been given something, some of you, with all respect, have put a price on your heads. So why are you buyable?
You know, I'll first of all respond to the issue of transforming the livelihoods of the people of Kasese by Salim Saleh. That was a fallacy. He came up with a project called Agri-Led. Money was put in the budget and it was even swindled. It never even reached Kasese. But we saw people being hoodwinked into the PDM program, which is a national program. And I remember some of the people who the 14 million has been talking about. Many people enrolled into the Yellow Book for two reasons. It was a meal card, because they were telling them, these security officers, BISOs, PISOs, and what saying, if you don't have a membership card of the NRM, you are not going to be a beneficiary of PDM. That is deception. But secondly, when Museveni took to the bush...
Are you saying that the parish development model program
it was also used as a tool,
has not positively impacted on the people of Kasese?
It was a tool that was used to hoodwink members of the opposition into the Yellow Book
I want you to
be part of this 14 million.
I want if you put this correct. In what methods or the reason behind aside, haven't the people of Kasese benefited from PDM?
They have received the 1 million. But when you go on the ground, what is the impact on their livelihoods?
Do you realize
These are people,
do you realize the impact of 100 million for every parish, where a person who has never held $1 million shillings, it has come to their pockets? You think those people are not inclined to follow the person who has given them, even though this was a government program, not a party program, but still they will have to link it with NRM because NRM is in power?
Exactly, yes, they will. So that's the deception I was talking about.
Can't we conclude that development programs like Polish development model could have swayed the people of Kasese to turn yellow?
Not all of them.
For those who did?
Yes, for those who did, yes.
You didn't get 100%.
But now,
that's why you didn't get 100%.
The balancing of the equation. You have an opposition which is struggling to finance its activity as a political party. And you have an incumbent who is using public resources to hoodwink members to his political party. Without those resources, would he still attract members to his party? That should be the fundamental question. Secondly, if you know that you are a mass party that is attractive to the citizens, why would you put impediments during the electoral process? I want to tell you, there is a polling station that was put in Mubuku. There is a hub, the presidential hub. At that very polling station, our constituency chairperson of Busongora North, is called Bagenda Samson, was injured by armed forces. If you went to Kasese now, you would see that he has scars. Remember, this is an election which is supposed to be a civil process. But the use of arms, the barracks, there is another barracks called Kavera. It's in Hima. There is another barracks in
Karungibate.
Butsumbamuru, another one in Karungibate. In fact, the two that are in Hima is Kavera barracks and Butsumbamuru. So when you see the militarization in that process, it leaves a lot to be desired. And you ask yourself, one of the fundamental reasons why President Museveni went up in arms against the regime of the late military Obote, the UPC government, was that an election had been stolen. And it was not even an easy election that had been stolen. Can he now justify why he's doing worse than what the regime, than what took him to the bush to fight against?
I would want Paula to respond to that because those are very serious issues. The militarization, the involvement of military officials in the electoral process, going into partisan politics, really. And at the end of the day, harassing the Wananchi is not something... At
a polling tally center, you see military armored vehicles.
The of the UPDF that really we know shouldn't be getting involved in, and he has evidence that they have been involved.
Well, I'll answer that question. It's really a simple one. But let me talk about the PDM that he mentioned briefly, though. Is that the argument that NRM uses PDM to attract people doesn't hold water. The beginning point is all of us political parties, we are asked to give manifesto to people so that they see which one is better to vote for you. In 2016, we gave a manifesto to people saying, if you vote for us, we shall give this money. So the giving of the money is on the social contract that the people voted for. Why didn't you put it in your manifesto that if you vote for us, we shall give PDM? Possibly you would have got more votes. So it's not starting from nowhere. It's starting from the position that all parties are free to draft their manifesto the way they want. So by the time we are giving them PDM, we are already giving what we had asked the people. Is this a good idea? Can you vote for us? So you want them to vote for us, what we promise, and we don't give? No. That is why we gave, because we asked, and any party was free. In fact, in the last election, Noop went to Busoga and said, if you vote for us, we shall scrap PDM. We said, now you are playing in our hands. People want PDM. You are saying you will, if voted, you will scrap. No. So PDM is not, in essence, what NRM uses to buy. PDM is a thinking. You know, it started, Kamara, out of, there were so many, Kibina. So NRM then said, if people like this Kibina so much, why don't we then institutionalize it? Can we tell people, if you vote us, we shall do it? So we are simply implementing what we had told the people, and they voted us on that ground. Back to your question. Your question is, Honorable says that Museveni went to the bush to fight Obote and things are worse. That is absolutely not true. Nothing is worse. We can even have all indicators to measure. But we always false, all indicators to measure show that everything is better. But we always have these blanket statements, the military interfering. But if you open up the Kamara, there's nothing. For example, this last deployment, indeed there was massive deployment of the military. Why? Because the population needed to be assured of security. For example, in some voting, even here in Kampala, if you went to vote, the voters would even say, look at his nose, we know where you are going to vote. Some people would be intimidated not even to go and vote. So that was it. But you remember there's a sellotape Sellotape that was put around the polling station. Soldiers were not supposed, did not go beyond that sellotape. I give you an example, Kamara. Our chief whip, Obua, there was massive deployment in the constituency of Obua, of soldiers. If soldiers were used for voting, why didn't they make Obua win? The soldiers that were deployed in Uganda did not enter the sellotape. Never. Soldiers were there to give assurance of security, so that in any voting, in any place, nobody looks at you and says, I can see your nose. You seem to be voting. People were supposed to vote freely. So the blanket statements that is put, that all things are worse, nothing. No, all indicators, whether economic...
There are women who are in leadership of National Unity Platform. One of them, I think, was called Jolly Jackson and Lena Zadriga. Vice President Noop, Northern Uganda. At that level, this woman was arrested, taken away for days, for weeks. Nobody knew where she was. Not her family, not her lawyers, not her doctors. And yet, later the government said, we have her. This is in the middle of the election period. So is the same as the vice president of NUP in Western Uganda. Another lady, also arrested and taken communicado. Nobody knows where. They just disappeared.
And people were killed also in cold blood at Honorable Chivumbi's home. 10 people.
At least that one is immediately went to into investigation and there's a court case. But for these ladies, for weeks on the Paula, they are nowhere. So why wouldn't people get scared if a vice president of a party has been, taken, captured, and the government said we don't have a woman?
So what is the question on that?
So the question is, there was intimidation, there was arrest, there was harassment. Of course, that would scare people to go and cast their vote.
You see, there was a question of arrest, which took place. And that is within the domain of police. For me, as a political party, I was a contestant like any other party. But all I gather from them is that the police was supposed to maintain law and order. It was not that during election, the law stays in abeyance. The role of police to maintain law and order means if you were to go to election, or for example, if you are to go to dig in the garden, dig according to the peacefully. If you went to church, pray, don't pick a chair and beat your friend. If you are in Angenua, dance, don't pick a bottle, break your head, your friend's head. Similarly, if you are in campaign, don't break the law. So the arrest, according to police, and which we as a political party, Plot 10, NRM, are not part of it, is that the law enforcers had reasons, suspicion for the arrest, but that is their mandate. Okay. So we leave and wait for them what they do.
Let me change the gear here to you, Honorable Robert Centenary, because, sometimes you seem to be reacting towards the NRM party. They came out with some kind of message, protecting their gains, taking a leap forward, and and something they promise some of the things. So when we listen to FDC and maybe NUP, you seem, with all respect, to be so low on the message.
Oh my God, I think, with due respect, FDC had the most elaborate and practical manifesto. Fixing the economy, money in the pocket. And we clearly showed where the money is going to come from, the savings, and what we are going to do with that money. If Ugandans were voting on the basis of a message, then the FDC manifesto was superb. When you talk about protecting the gains, I want the Ugandans, at a personal level, you sit down at home and tell me, which gains do you have to protect?
The people
at a personal level
will tell you one, security.
What about in Karamoja? Security. Where the poverty index is almost into the roof. Even in Kasese, where I come from, it's not a bed of roses. I'm telling you, there are people who are sleeping hungry. There are people who can't even afford a meal, and then you say you have transformed the lives of the people. So,
the people of Kasese are known to be very hardworking and industrious.
very hardworking.
And industrious. So what happened?
Not lazy, but the environment in which they operate. Businesses in Uganda, including Kasese, do not see their first birthday from the time of inception.
They die in their infancy.
They die.
But
why?
But
poor tax policies.
You can be here
expensive.
And say, Centenary, you can be here and say you lost the election. But let's look at the numbers. When it comes to members of parliament, almost 500 of them. How many did you even deploy for every constituency? Whereas NRM put 500 fully in every constituency. How many? 147 or 45 districts. How many of FDC members were running in those positions? Or sub-county chairperson? In some places, you were nowhere at all. How would you even win that election?
We fielded candidates on almost all the positions.
Almost.
Yes. We did field the
Let me tell you, the people who came close to fielding in all was National Unity Platform fielded 59% in the constituencies for members of parliament. 59%. And when it comes to district chairpersons, LOC 5, 33%. When it comes to LOC sub-county chairperson, they fielded 19%. With those numbers, how would you win?
The issue should be those who were fielded, who participated.
But even when you have fielded, you also have
political environment
you have contestation from others as well.
Did we have that would enable them to even win an election? I want to tell you, when we talk about the flaws in the election process, don't even come to the general election. First look at the internal process, the primary elections of the NRM. What you saw happening, is it something that is desirable? If they can be able to steal their own internal election, what makes you think they are credible enough to pretend over a credible general election where they are now competing with external people? Let us be a bit logical about this. Now, we are operating in a political environment where, as the opposition, we are starting from a negative. The ground is not leveled at all. First of all, if you look at the amount of money that the state puts on every head that is competing against the flag bearer of the ruling party, I can tell you, even those who survive the election, now when they are awarding medals for heroes,
but Honorable
those are the heroes that we need to celebrate.
Yes. Won elections before,
yes.
In the same constituencies, under the same circumstances.
No, the circumstances under which I won that election, actually.
What has changed that your party used to be strong, now it is not?
It was not even mainly the strength of the party. There was an acrimonious primary election that took place in my constituency. And tactfully, I took advantage of that situation. I got a vote from the NRM side, I got a vote from my own party side.
So for you to win, you must get support of NRM. When NRM withdraws their support, then you don't win.
I had to appeal.
Yes, but what you are saying is that you had to appeal.
Divide.
Yes. So when
now, how do I get the advantage is that I was able to get the inside information about the stealing. So this time, I also had insiders telling me, you know, this polling station watch, this one watch, here they are doing ABCD. So I was able to detect the election fraud and deal with it there and then.
Okay. Paula, you are at one point a serving officer of the UPDF.
Come again?
You at one point served in the army,
yes.
The Uganda People's Defense Forces, and we have a lot of respect for the uniform. But when your colleagues are deployed at the home of the Honorable Robert Kyagulanyi. And then we hear that his family has been harassed. We hear that his wife has been assaulted. We hear that she's been taken to hospital. She's giving interviews that such and such things have happened to them. We see gory images. We see horrible stories. That is despicable.
Yes, I will answer that squarely. But just permit me to comment about the gains. Honorable is doubting what gains are there to be protected. I think we should count one gains is the gains that we are here. The gains that we have the freedom that Kamara can call NRM and call FDC. And we talk. That itself is a gain, right from our sitting here. That we can talk, we can differ in opinion, and you go home and sleep. That is a gain. And those are the gains that we're saying must be protected, okay? Leave alone other far gains that I wouldn't go in. There are lots of gains. And the gains that we insist are national gains, like security, like all others, infrastructure. But I just wanted to say one of the gains is our being here. It's a gain itself. Now, the other thing is you are saying that if we could mismanage, as you said, our internal elections, how do we superintend the national elections? Our election is superintended by Dr. Tanga Udoi. National elections, Kamara, we are equally candidates. We don't superintend national elections. We are a party like others. If we were superintending these elections, we wouldn't have struggled night and days. I spent nights and days during campaign because they had zoned us area. I was zoned northern Uganda in Lango. So if I was superintending, would I have spent days without sleeping on election that I'm superintending? So it is wrong to assume that NRM superintend a national election. It is Election Commission, an independent body. To your question of Kyagulanyi. Again, I am saying that the law keepers, the state agents, including police in the lead, and the military, the UPDF, when called by the police, they have continued to do their work so that the laws are not in abeyance, particularly during campaign. So the circumstances of their being in Honorable Kyagulanyi's home needs detail, which I'm not privy to. First of all, you and me will not even differentiate with certainty whether the lead people at Kyagulanyi's place are actually police or UPDF. So it's a case-by-case situation of which I am not so conversant with the facts. I think that question can
if
best...
it's one of the two, does it
so that question...
change it?
If, for example, it is police, which is doing the due process of law, what I had initially insisted on law and order, and they have matters to investigate, that would be in their domain. But as far as having me been in the military, of course, NRA was such a proud army to be with, a proud army to be in, where any small digression against a civilian would earn you a firing squad. I'm happy to have been there, and we did our best. So in this particular incident of Honorable Kyagulanyi's place, it is a fact that needs to be verified on case by case. And I think the best people, or I'm sure the best people to answer are the people in the theater, because they know the circumstances under which they are there.
I'm sure you must have read some communication online of members in the UPDF, including at the highest level of the military command, talking about the arrests and how
tweeting.
Yes. So you see these things, you know them.
I have seen, if you are going by social media, which me as a lawyer and advocate would find it inadmissible for me as a lawyer, as an advocate. So that's why I'm saying this is a matter that needs a case-by-case analysis and the right people to answer. Because right now I don't have the facts. It really doesn't come to plot 10 as a ruling party. As I already said, that for us, we are a political party like any other party. And we therefore compete with others equally. When it is during campaign, we don't sleep like any other party not sleeping. If things were so easy for us, we'd go and sleep and pretend over the election, which we don't.
Major Paula Wich and Honorable Robert Centenary, gentlemen, we're going to take a break, and on the spot, we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amar. My guests tonight are retired Major Paula Wich, Director for External Affairs at the NRM Secretariat, and the Honorable Robert Centenary, National Vice President, the Forum for Democratic Change. You know, I just want to look into the issue of how we're being looked at externally. Just last week, there was a serious debate in the European Parliament in Brussels. And when you look at the members of Parliament upon MP, how they talk about Uganda, our human rights record, our elections, how it was handled. And these are partners in development because they put money into the government of Uganda through aid and grant and stuff like that. But Robert, as if we are being, you know, portrayed as a pariah state, almost like rogue. How do we clean the image of Uganda?
You know, Bob Marley sang once said that you can fool some people sometimes, but you can't fool all the people all the time. The good thing is that now we have media in all aspects, even at the palm of your hands. You can broadcast anything that happens. We have people who are incarcerated for participating in an election process. People were arrested at rallies, people were brutalized, bruised, injured, others killed. And these things go to the public domain. So we're in an era where it is difficult to conceal the flaws of the state. The previous regimes were a little bit lucky that they would control the media. But now the media is liberalized. Although the internet was switched off during the elections, the media houses were given stern warnings on what to and what not to broadcast, but eventually the internet was opened up. And all the things, the dirty things that happened during the process of campaigns and elections have finally found their way into the public domain. There has been a serious demand to have an election audit. You see, the process is as good as the end. If the NRM stands on the values of having a democratic process that is credible, then they should be able to walk the talk. The European Union is a development partner. They pump a lot of money. Our budget has a big percentage of foreign funding. And this money, they collect it from people who respect human rights. I do not think there is anybody who respects human rights that will be willing to spend their money in a place where the human rights are not being respected. If you ask, you talked about Lina Rodriguez and other political prisoners who have even been denied bail. Ideally, in the previous elections, any election-related offenses end at the time the election is over. But now these are cases that are dragging on. Every election cycle, we have people who are put in prison. Others have even disappeared. Probably they have even died because the government has not given account on their whereabouts. Now, the shame is slowly and steadily dying out. Initially, there was some little bit of pretense they would hide some of these things that they were doing, but today, they will come and do whatever they want in broad daylight without fear or shame, and they have now developed a new slogan of declare or do whatever it is, let them go to court. This is not healthy for the democracy of our country. People still had hope that probably through an election we could have a change of regime. But the moment the citizens are being pushed and pushed to the edge, they're going to be more desperate. Right now, as I speak, if I describe the situation in this country, there is a crack on the pipe. Very soon the pipe is going to explode if we cannot manage the processes very well. We must be able to give hope to the citizens. The most clean way of having a regime change is through the ballot. Let us not push the citizens to other means of changing the regime. It's because bloodshed is very dangerous. Even those who are claiming to protect the gain, the moment there is anarchy, instability in this country, all of us will suffer the same wrath.
Okay.
So we should be treated as stakeholders. In fact, any serious leader of this country should not even be making reckless statements of, I'm going to wipe out the opposition by this year, giving those ultimatums. That's a sign of greed. We should be looking at Uganda first. In Kenya, they're almost degenerating into where the path that we are now taking as a country. But for the love of their country, they had to put down their egos, their personal interests, and agree that, okay, now let us put a government of national unity. Kenya first. If we start to have a conversation around Uganda first, I think it would be the best gift that we can ever give to these citizens of this country. Okay. We must set an agenda that is inclusive of. There are also people who are in NRM who are disgruntled. They are suffering there quietly. The only opportunity that they have is that when the election cycle comes, then some money is released to the structures at the village level, maybe parish and what. Then so they will keep waiting until that moment comes for them to get some little bit of money. That is what keeps them together, money.
All right,
but there is also security, the force.
You have made your point.
Yeah.
You have made your point. Thank you. Let me come to you, retired Major Paula Awich. The government of Uganda and the regime that you serve has taken a serious beating from the European Parliament. Yes, they could be in the Northern Hemisphere, but they are partners in our development. And we need to be viewed in a better way. Are we likely to see you go on a charm offensive, in the US and the Europe to try put the record straight for Uganda? Because as it is now, we don't look good, do we?
Sure, if given chance, I should go on offensive. I would love to do it. Remember, Kamara, that I've worked with the Europeans for 8 years. I was elected by the UN General Assembly to be a judge of human rights for 2 Kisanja. Each Kisanja is 4 years. So I served in Geneva for a total of 8 years. So I know their methods of work. So given the chance to go and explain, as you call offensive, I would willingly do it, and I would do it successfully. But let's wait. But about the European Parliament, it is true that they had the debate, and they are going to have more. First of all, European Union is our great partners. We meet them as at 3 levels. one at the first level is that members of the European Union have bilateral relationship. Uganda, Denmark, Uganda, Netherlands, that is bilateral. But also at a regional level as European Union, including the decisions that is binding on them, that affects us, we also have what you would call multilateral relationship. But also in the family of UN, which is expected as a group of civilized. We are in UN together, and therefore we are expected to behave according to the norms. So it's true we have symbiotic relationship, we are friends, we are good, and we wish to continue. So a debate was there, and another debate will be there on Monday. Another debate will be there on Monday, although my worry here is that they seem, you know, they have agenda, which is a public agenda. Like you have order paper. Like you have order paper in Parliament. So I have looked at their order paper because I am a very conscious person and I work without being pushed. So I follow what happens. I've looked at their order paper. Their order paper includes summoning our ambassador in Brussels. I've also looked, unfortunately, on their order paper, calling NUP to appear. And my worry was, if they said they're calling our ambassador to appear on behalf of Uganda, then why NUP? Because NUP is also under Uganda. But if they had chosen to call political actors, I think in the best interest of a fair hearing, how I wish they had also summoned NRM. But be as it is, that is their draft agenda. On Monday, it will be discussed. What your question was, how can we remedy the situation? There are many ways. First of all, Kamara, the best way to remedy situations is for us to respect human rights. That is a clear remedy, okay? That is one clear remedy. The other remedy is that in case violations occur, you see, states are not judged on a case-by-case basis, Kamara. For example, states are not judged on whether Corporal Okello broke somebody's leg or Sergeant Tumwesije killed a person. States like Uganda are judged on institutional framework. What measures do you have should such occurrences happen? This thing is not the first time in the European Union. They debated it at some point. I made a response and they agreed. How? I proved to European Union measures that Uganda asked. I went to police and asked police, said, do you discipline your officers? Police said, we have police disciplinary authority. I said, I want all the rulings. Police gave me. Some officers were sentenced to jail, whatever offenses against civilians. Others were dismissed. I went to UPDF. I said, I want court-martial ruling. UPDF gave me a court-martial ruling of many cases of violations. So a country like Uganda, or even Kenya or any other country, is judged on measures that are in place. So one way of curing European Union is to explain to them the measures that we have with examples that has taken place. And that is one measure. Remember that we have very many attributes that the European Union praises. For example, in refugee is a big problem in the European Union. For a long time, Uganda had been the best refugee hosting country in the world. Recently, we were taken over by Turkey. And you know why Turkey? Because Turkey gets a lot of money from refugees. Why? Because Europeans use them as a shield to protect refugees from the East going to Western Europe. So they gave them money, say, you people be the gate man, be the gate man. So it makes Turkey make laws which are refugee friendly, make policies which we had beaten them. So now we are the second best. So we do it so well. Now, this among, including regional security. European Union knows we are the best in regional security in the area. Somali, and all others. Therefore, one of to be brief, among the issues to heal our relationship with the European Union is, first of all, to be seen to be human rights abiding, which we have. Two, to explain to our friends, the European Union, measures that we have in place. Because states are not judged by case of how Corporal Tumwesi has killed, of how Sergeant Okello has killed. But in case of violations, do you have measures in place? And that's why I carried all the court martial rulings and all the police rulings and proved to them this is what to do. And they were satisfied. This thing has come up again. I once dealt with it.
All right, thank you. You made your point. And in the interest of time, gentlemen, I'm going to give each one of you a minute to give us your concluding remarks. So let me begin with the Honorable Centenarian.
My concluding remarks, we are in a situation as opposition political parties where I don't know whether it is greed or patronage or too much love for monopoly over power or opportunism. I don't know how to describe it, but I think it falls under all those. Where the regime is now coming with a very big axe and a very big check that it offers to the people who are actually supposed to be advising it. I don't know in what spirit the regime is trying to compromise its advisors, because even in a home or anywhere else, like the white people say that a fly that has no one to advise it follows the corpse up to the grave. I see this country going into autocracy, where whoever tries to rise up and say, look, here you have gone wrong, here you have gone off track, they either punish you or buy you off. This is sending a message that they're actually trying to silence any dissenting views or dissenting voices in the community. And it is very dangerous, because now they want to act with impunity. And this is not healthy. Even for those who are in government, the moment this country is plunged into, this disintegrates the systems, the processes, the structures, the moment they disintegrate, it will become a very big problem to rebuild this country beyond that individual, that everyone is working so hard to maintain in power: the security, the police, the army, the members, the leaders. Some people are in the NRM not because their conscience tells them that it is the best place to be at, but because that is where the bread is, because that is where the forces of arm are, that is where power is. They find themselves feeling secure in that place.
Right. Thank you. Major Paula, your parting shot.
My parting shot is that the topic we have had at hand is the culture of opposition politics. And we have seen that it started long ago, but I'm glad that as NRM, we are saying we are interested as a mass party to win over as many as possible, as long as we're winning lawfully and judiciously. And that is why we are saying, if you are elected under your party, please don't be mischievous and cross. Go lose your election first. Therefore, we are going to win over opposition. We shall continue, but only on condition that we do the right thing for the people, for them to be won at the grassroots level, even at the leadership. And we don't have an apology for that. As long as our winning is freely and consciously from them, for seeing the good that we have done. And that is why in our manifesto, we shall religiously monitor this manifesto. Every 6 months, what have you Minister of Water done? You Minister of Health, have you built the hospital? You education, you are support. After 1 year, we shall monitor our manifesto, because it is our contract with the people to see that we do what we promise the people and we win. And the next person I want to hear is Honorable Centenary. Please, right. You are welcome to cross over.
Thank you very much, Honorable Robert Centenary. Thank you, Major Paula, which I want to thank you, but most of all, you, the viewers, I want to thank you. We have had these gentlemen, sometimes they can disagree in a debate, which I think is normal. They disagree not because they hate each other. They disagree, I think, because they love Uganda more. And I believe in you, the people of Uganda. And I'm very optimistic, eternally optimistic, that as a people, we shall get there. Good night, and God bless Uganda.